Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video I want to do a design study on a potential new design for a base cabinet. Following on the heels in the success of the 1798 base cabinet, this is base cabinet 1799. So you may have noticed I did a video on the 8-inch Purifi where I looked at the test data on that and discovered that it is in fact quite a well-performing driver, offering great output and low distortion. So in this video, I kind of my brainchild here on how to take the 1798 cabinet further. And so what I've done is introduced a new design that's got dual 10-inch Purifi woofers. And so this is something that I kind of had in my head and thought, what if I did like a wide body version of the 1798? And so that's what this is. So in this video, I'm just going to go through and show some of the design elements and why I've gone with this particular design and some of the benefits. And so let's get right to it. So I'm just going to change my zoom settings here just so that it's a little bit off to the side. Okay, so this is a rendering of the base cabinet, and so it's maintains the same horn flare as the 1798, except I've simply stretched it and made it wider, which created the rectangle horn throat, which accommodated the 10-inch Purifi quite nicely there. And so here's the 10-inch driver, and it's quite an attractive driver, and you can tell with the large surround, it looks like it has a healthy dose of X-Max going on there. Now another thing that's interesting with it is it has the double ceramic magnets, which is interesting to see. So to start off, I posed the question, why Purifi? Okay, so you'll know from the last test that I did on the 8-inch woofer, it had extremely low distortion, even when comparing it against a 15-inch. And so here I've just published the test results when looking at intermodulation distortion between the Purifi 8-inch and the 15-inch. And so you can see here at the 125 hertz, the distortion was 62 dB down from the fundamental tone. And so that's a record-breaking result for low distortion, where the BEMA had 50 dB consistently across its frequency bandwidth. Okay, so just graphically presenting that, which is just the same data as above, but you can just see here how the 8-inch Purifi offered just that little bit more dynamic range, and in this instance we're getting about 12 dB improvement in dynamic range. So the new 10-inch version, by virtue of it having much more radiating area, is going to be even lower distortion. Now I haven't had an opportunity to test the new 10-inch yet, but simply speculating that it must be better by virtue of it being larger. So that's the idea here, is to use two woofers. Why not? You know what I mean? So if one is good, why not two? So that's what we're doing here in this design. I had mentioned earlier too, in the review of the 8-inch, we did see some port noise coming through and affecting the response. So that's one issue that I was seeking to resolve with this base cabinet. And so the nice thing about Purifi is they offer passive radiators for the all their woofers. And so an easy way to resolve this port noise issue is to integrate passive radiators into the design. And so that's what I've done with this cabinet design. I've simply placed two 10-inch passive radiators on each side, so there's a total of 4 passive radiators per cabinet. And another advantage to the passive radiators is that on the 1798 design, you can see here we have the slot ports, which actually increase the overall height of the cabinet. So by eliminating those slot ports, I'm able to lower the overall cabinet height by about 10 centimeters. I still went with the layered design with 2 layers of 24 millimeter Baltic birch plywood there, sandwiching 12 millimeters of hardwood, just to provide the cabinet rigidity and the overall aesthetic of the cabinet, keeping it looking beefy. So So that's two advantages there to the passive radiators, lowering the overall height of the cabinet and also preventing some of that mid-range sound from escaping through the ports and coloring the response like we saw with the 8-inch test that I did in the previous video. Okay, so yeah, so I have a picture of the ES 290 biradial in walnut, and I'm still struggling to get my renders with SolidWorks Photo View, trying to get my renders to look as good as the real deal, but that's what the finish looks like in the walnut. And you also saw there the cabinet finished with the real walnut veneer looks quite stunning. So here it is, some more renders with the back of the cabinet with the 4 passive radiators. You can see here, so the throat size didn't change in the height, and so it allowed the 10-inch to actually fit nicely, and the surround is actually within the throat area so that we're not actually having to block or space the driver back from the horn mouth, so it actually solves another problem there. The other thing that I would like to do is to make the driver mounting panel removable, which would allow the use of larger drivers such as an 18-inch or a 21-inch driver in there as well. So taking advantage of the larger throat area. So that's another thing with the wider design that we can down the road accommodate 18 or 21-inch woofers. So okay, so Purifi was nice enough to include some cabinet volumes that were recommended along with the weights required for their passive radiators. So that's nice, and that's what this design is based on. The tuning frequency when using the passive radiators is 26 hertz. Which is quite a bit lower than the 1798 base cabinet, which had its tuning frequency at 33 hertz. So sensitivity is a bit tricky, and I'll just explain this. So there's 2 different ways, obviously, to wire the woofers, either in series or in parallel. And then to add to the complexity, there's the 2 ways of specifying sensitivity, either with a fixed voltage or in the case of those that are using tube amps, you really want to know what the output is at 1 watt. And so I've included the sensitivity ratings for the 4 different scenarios. So with series wiring at the 2.83 volt, we're at 88.4 dB sensitivity. That's quite a drop from other 15-inch Pro Sound woofers, including the TAD. So you can see here that the highest sensitivity rating is with the drivers wired in parallel when using the 2.83 volts. However, the impedance does dip to 2.8 ohm at 100 hertz. That's the lowest point in the impedance sweep. So a difficult load there if you're wiring it in that configuration. However, sensitivity does not change if you're wiring it in series or parallel, if you're fixing it at 1 watt output, regardless of the voltage. And so actually I should have changed these here to what the voltage requirements are. So I'll correct that in my blog. But basically still the 2.8 ohm when wiring it in parallel. So I would say that would be the biggest drawback to this particular design is the sensitivity difference. So just keep that in mind. So physical size, I have a dimensional drawing here just to highlight. So the listening height, if you're looking at the mid-range driver, it becomes 102.8 centimeters. The cabinet width here is 134 centimeters, and then the depth is 55. And so we've tried to keep it still within reason. Especially helpful is the trapezoidal shape, allowing you to kind of squeeze it perhaps into a corner or allow some other objects to be in the back there. So another area that I wanted to look at was the maximum output SPL. And so there's kind of 2 categories here, especially considering bandwidth. And so I've specified the maximum output SPL, either if you're playing music content that has content down to 45 hertz, or if you're playing bass heavy content that has content down to 24 hertz. And so the dual Purify is able to output 118 dB at 1 meter with a single cabinet. And I believe it takes about 500 watts to achieve that SPL. Comparing it to a single 15-inch Bema, the 15LX60 V2, it's capable of 122 dB output. However, things change in favor of the Purify if you're playing music with bass content down to 24 hertz. And so the Purify is easily able to handle the extra bass, the deep bass content, and provide 116 dB output, where the 15-inch Bema actually runs out of X-Max at 115 dB. So here we're seeing the dual 10s outperforming a single Bema Pro Sound woofer, particularly when it's playing low bass content in the 24 hertz. With every bass cabinet, you're going to get excessive amounts of X-Max below the tuning frequency. And so if you look at what happens in the 20 hertz region, you're quickly going to run out of X-Max regardless. So, okay, so another area that I wanted to mention as well was on the pattern control. And so the front horn, you can see here, this is the directivity map for the 1798 bass cabinet. And so what's going to happen with the wider cabinet is we're going to see improved pattern control due to the wider physical width. And so what that means is this 200 hertz area is going to be even lower as far as maintaining pattern control, which is going to just help with the overall visceral experience. And so what I've found was that with the front horn, it's providing a controlled, direct sound towards the listener versus a regular bass cabinet that's not horn loaded, where it simply is omnidirectional. And so if you're sitting at the listening chair, you're getting the direct sound, and then almost immediately following that, you're getting the room reflections with almost the same intensity as the direct sound. And so it kind of has this fizzing out effect where you're not having that impact that you would with. And this is something that is extremely hard to capture in an objective measurement sense, but it's a visceral feeling that's not even something that's heard, but more felt. And so with the 1798 bass cabinet, you're getting tremendous, feeling to the music where you feel that pressure wave front hit you. And so it's something that is very rewarding and enjoyable from a musical enjoyment perspective. And so that's the strong reasoning for the front horn, is that it provides the pattern control, which has, more of a subjective benefit than anything that I can really capture. And I think maybe this polar map is the only real way to kind of capture what's going on compared to a regular bass cabinet. So another thing that I wanted to show was just the customer photos that were sent to me. So far, we've done 4 pairs for customers of the 1798. And so you can see here customers set up there. It looks very much like the Tannoy Westminster. I'll click on that just so you can see what that looks like here. Their website's a little bit, that doesn't look very special. Trying to get it with the grill off. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so it's got the walnut there, very similar kind of aesthetic as the Westminster. So you can see here set up there in a customer's living room what the 1798 looks like. So I did a render of what the wider cabinet would look like in a typical listening setup, and so you would need a larger listening room there to accommodate the wider width, but you can see here what it would look like. Okay, so current status as of today, which is September 1st, 2023. So I'm waiting on an order of the birch plywood that has the real walnut veneer pre-applied to the wood. That's how we make them, with the veneer pre-applied. And so I'm having to kind of make a decision on if this is the direction I want to go for the next pair of cabinets for our build. So I think this is likely the way that I'm going to go. I'm still awaiting some feedback from my supplier for Purifi to see what the lead time is on the 10-inch drivers. But if this is something that interests you and you want to discuss with me, perhaps you might want something like this, please let me know in the email there. I put my contact in the description. So there you have it. Bass cabinet $17.99, a new design that hopefully can push the boundaries even further for musical enjoyment. So take care and have a great day.